Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone who is joining. Welcome. We'll just wait a few seconds more as some of you are joining us. Anyway, in the meantime, I just wanted to say, first of all, welcome to Seminar 2 of Module 2. This is going to be a very, very exciting session. And as always, this is our online education program brought to you by Lake Clador Education and Training Committee, the Training Committee, which I am a member of, Sarah Dandishy, and I'm here joined by Sharon Empey as well. But before we dive into today's panel, I wanted to go ahead and review just some housekeeping notes for some of you in case this is your first time joining us. Welcome, and if you are joining us again, welcome back. So some housekeeping notes just so that you know how to go ahead and use and engage with us appropriately today. So first of all, absolutely feel free to engage with us throughout the seminar. All sessions are recorded, so please engage appropriately. Now, depending on your devices, there is a chat or questions feature. They actually end up coming through as the same. So when you go ahead and type in your question, which please do type in your question, please include your name and where you're from in the question box so that when we reply, others can see who has asked the question. And also in case we happen to be assigning the question to somebody, we just have all of those details. Some members might be given a chance to speak at the end with the presenter. So if that's the case, please be sure to use the raise your hand feature and that you are on a device that your audio works. We will also have a few polls that we will share throughout the session. So please stay tuned for those and also cast your vote as soon as possible, as we'll keep them live for about 45 seconds or so. As always, the recorded sessions of these seminars will be available on the Virtual Paris office just after this seminar is recorded. And of course, if you are interested in exploring a particular topic, always please feel free to send us a message to education@lakeclador.org, as the online education program is a program designed by members for members, so feedback is always appreciated. And with that being said, I will let Sharon take it away and introduce our wonderful guest for today. One moment, Sharon. Let's make sure we can hear you.
Better?
There you are.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome from Vancouver. On behalf of the Education and Training Committee, we are thrilled to have with us today Kate Buehler. A passionate hospitality professional, Kate has worked in luxury hotels for over 25 years and brings that expertise to her consulting training company, Profitable to Train. For many of you, Kate is a familiar face as she has traveled extensively working with luxury properties all over the world. After doing a bit of detective work to uncover hidden revenue opportunities, she schedules workshops with staff to highlight individual, employee, and departmental contributions. Now, if you've ever taken part in one of these workshops, you will know Kate is the queen of the Excel pivot table and formulas. While we do not normally think of the concierge as a traditional salesperson, you would be surprised to learn on how many occasions we influence a guest's decision. Today, Kate will discuss leading bravely in hospitality, remaining vital in a post-pandemic world. She will guide us through some of the challenges we may face as we return to work and show how the value of a Lake Clador concierge inspires new opportunities. Her forward-thinking business perspective provides insight on the various influences behind the decision-making process. So put on your thinking caps and open your mind to the possibilities. Welcome, Kate. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Let's welcome Kate. We will go ahead and make sure she joins us for the presentation. There you go.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Hello, Kate.
Hi. Hello,
Thank you
ladies.
again so much for joining us. I'm so excited for this presentation. I know we got a little bit of a sneak peek last week, so I know it's going to be fantastic and definitely well received. With
Well,
that being said, I will just make you a presenter so that you can share your screen,
will
and
do.
we'll let you take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you too very much, Sharon, for that nice introduction. My gosh, I'm not worthy. I definitely want to take you on the road with me.
Oh,
So
no
here we
problem.
are, right? Please. And I'm looking forward to being on the road again sometime, hopefully soon. Today, everybody, I am thrilled to be talking to you. I am just so happy to be able to speak to my hotel professionals. Um, the title of the topic is going to be Leading Bravely in Hospitality, and that's really what we're going to do. Um, I don't know about anybody here, but I always feel like I'm going to vomit if I hear one more time new normal, but that kind of is actually, unfortunately, there isn't a better term for it. The new normal is what is going to be happening as all the hotels come back online. And I believe that what is normal is going to change throughout the next couple of years as we settle in and figure out how we want to proceed. You are in the forefront of the leaders to change the hospitality industry as you need to. So I'm going to tell you what we're going to go through today. For those of you I have not yet met, I'm going to give you a brief introduction of who I am and how things are going for me at the moment. We're also going to just get a little perspective. So if I sound like I have all the answers, I can tell you right now I do not have all the answers. What I can tell you is, although we've never had a pandemic, at least not in the last 100 years, I'm going to go over the history of some other similar occurrences, or at least comparable occurrences, where we could talk about what was the result in our businesses up until these times. I have a lot of friends who are general managers. I've been talking to them all. I'm becoming the new queen of the Zoom calls. And I've been talking to them about what they're thinking and what is important to them at this point. So we're going to talk a little bit about thinking like a hotel owner or a general manager. Pre and post COVID-19, how is the Clé d'Or Concierge going to change? Some things will remain the same, always will, and other things, as we know, are going to have to be quite different. So I'm going to do a little slide on that. What is expected to be a challenge and projected opportunities? So I racked my brain to think about what are your opportunities going forward in your current profession, and also really what material and tools can you provide to your guests that they're going to need also going forward, and how to prepare to go back to work. Some of you are in different stages of furlough at this point. Others are still operating in a hotel that is up and running. But no matter where you are, we're going to talk about the current preparations being done to get the travel industry back where we need it to be.
And
So,
Kate, with
oh yes,
that
please.
being said,
Yes, ma'am. Go
sorry, I
ahead.
didn't mean to surprise you.
No, I'm
Can
like, oh,
we?
she's still here. Yes,
Yes, exactly. So I know that we had spoken about this. So if we could launch our first poll, that would
that's
be
right.
great. Which is based off of what I will launch the poll now, so you all can read it, and I will also read it out loud as well. So if you could take a moment, if you're on your devices, please go ahead and cast your vote. We want to know, and this is based off of what Kate will be talking about, what are your biggest concerns when thinking about returning to work? Is it getting sick yourself, not having enough guests or business to be rehired, limited options to offer guests, or having to do tasks outside of your job description? So I see you guys are putting in your votes, and it's interesting. This is such a great point that you bring up, Kate, because um, there are concerns, and
Oh yeah,
legitimately so. And there's varied concerns as well. Um, so
absolutely
let's
right.
just see. Looks like we're some more votes are still coming in.
Sure. Well, and I can tell you where this question comes from is I've been coaching individuals, and these are the 4 topics that I hear people are most worried about. So I'll be really interested in hearing what they think.
Yeah, okay. So it looks like it's stabled out a little bit here. I will close this poll quickly. I know some of you guys are putting in last minute votes. Okay, I'll close the poll. And so the results, let me just quickly share just so that you guys can see, is 17% getting sick yourself, 50% not having enough guests or business to be rehired,
Yeah.
26% limited options to offer guests, and 8% having to do tasks outside of your job description.
Oh, I love it. You know what? That is good news to me, Sarah. So moving forward then, people are not necessarily so worried about having to expand their job scope a little bit or shift their job scope a little bit, but more worried about just not having work in the first place. Is that what you're seeing?
Yes, exactly. That's what we're seeing.
Got you. Okay, excellent. Well, that just helps inform me, everybody. Thank you for taking part in that as to what I'll be talking about next. But again, my biography by the numbers, just super quick, because actually I probably would have answered very similarly in that poll. I'm worried about all 4 of those things, but it probably would have shaken out about the same. I did indeed work in the luxury hotel industry for 30 years. And I'm currently actually writing a book, not a tell-all book, but a different type of book about how the hospitality industry has changed in the last 30 years. Of course, now I've had to totally restart over and change my book because this has been kind of the boomerang in the works. I've had my own business since 2011. I've been an independent consultant and trainer. So before that, I worked with Peninsula, Four Seasons, and a couple of other companies, but then went out on my own in 2011. Until March 2020, so up until this pandemic and quarantine happened, I was traveling over 275 days a year globally. I think my busiest year, I topped out at almost 300 days. And I've worked with some of the best properties and the best teams. And I only say this in the concierge class. I train all different classes, all different departments, but I say in the concierge, they're my favorites. Why? Number one, I married a concierge. So obviously that's where my heart lies. And also number two, I have found the concierge teams to be the consummate professionals and the most passionate people who work in the hospitality industry. So if there's anything I can do, I'm going to do it to help the concierge team along. Currently, as I said, I am writing a book. I am blogging all the time. I'm appearing on a lot of webcasts, and I'm revising my techniques. The classes that I was teaching up to 4 months ago won't necessarily work anymore. So I have to redo and rethink everything I'm doing too. I'm also coaching individuals. I am career coaching for people who are looking for shifts in their particular fields. And then lastly, I'm determining what my next chapter is going to be. So I tell you that because far from having all the answers, I wrote a blog not too long ago about some essential truths for non-essentials. And the fact of the matter is most people working in hotels are to some extent non-essential. Consultants working for hotels really are at the top of that non-essential list. So what can I do to revise my career and make my talents work for me? That's something we're all struggling with right now. And sometimes it's terrifying and sometimes it's exciting, right? Sometimes I'm eating a pint of ice cream and very upset. And other times I'm kind of looking forward to what is next. And I think both truths can live together and be fine. So this seems like such a dramatic time. I say, you know, if they wrote a script for this, we wouldn't believe it and it wouldn't get produced as a movie. But there have been other dramatic times. So let's just quickly take a look at some of the highlights of historic moments in the last 100 years. Well, so worldwide impact. The 1918 pandemic, of course, many, many more millions of people were killed in that particular influenza pandemic. But we didn't have so many of the tools that we have now. We also didn't have the communication that we have now. So, and it also was a really long time ago. I don't know anyone that was alive in 1918 that can tell me about it. But 102 years ago, the world was going through something very similar to what we're going through now. There have been 2 world wars. Of course, there's been lots of other wars, but those 2 wars that impacted the entire globe. There have been 5 global recessions since the Great Depression. This is economic collapse that has impacted every single corner of the earth. Most recent, of course, being 2008, 2009, the big recession that happened. That is one we can think about when we are looking and trying to trend spot what's going to be happening next. But it is different, I will tell you, in many ways. The global recession of 2008 through to about 2011 impacted the lower end of the economy more than the upper end. So luxury actually was one of the groups to recover first during that recession. And actually this, because of the nature of the pandemic, is affecting the luxury market more. So, so that's a little bit of an inversion as to what was happening. After 2011, 2012, really we've had a boom time where a lot of new properties have been getting built, new restaurants opening. Everybody has been very successful. Stock market has hit new heights. All of those things, if you started working after 2012 or so, you really have not encountered anything like this before. Technological developments also have been an enormous impact. So the requests, things that people are wanting now, is different than it was just 10 years ago. The way that a guest communicates with the concierge desk is completely different than it used to be. You're much more likely now to get an email or to receive a chat or a text. So just keep that in mind, that when everyone tells you, oh, we've never seen anything like this before, true, but we've also seen changes before. That's not really news. Unfortunately, I have to say, terrorism attacks have also been on the rise and in the horizon for the last 20, 30 years. And again, they impact the industry for travel globally. So it's important to just keep in mind that we'll be talking a little bit about that, but when there is a terrible, tragic event that happens in one part of the world, it affects all the other parts of the world, doesn't it? So when something happens, you have to change your policies, your procedures. Again, that's not new. There's a couple of regional impacts too that we have seen in the last 100 years. And when I say regional, I don't mean that they're not a big deal. I mean that they've not affected necessarily the entire globe. Political unrest happens in pockets of the world all the time. We're dealing with that too in many parts of the world now. Wars and epidemics, whether or not it is a world war or whether or not it is a local world war, we have to be aware that that is impacting our guests. Epidemics, so now we have a pandemic, but when you think about Ebola, that certainly affected Africa. When you think about SARS, that certainly has hit Asia. And so these regions of the world have a lot to teach us as to how do we respond as businesses. Here's another one that is changing regionally, and that is changes in consumer demands. The things that guests used to ask. So some of the concierges, perhaps, that have been around for a few decades like me, you might realize there have been changes as to what the customers want. So what customers were interested in purchasing is different than what they're purchasing now, 10 years later. And a lot of that is changes in consumer demands, changes in your clientele's profile. So again, I tell you this not to bum you out. This slide is kind of a bummer, but I tell you it because I want you to think about the fact that we have lived through a lot of these changes and we've absorbed them already. And that should make us feel a little stronger maybe than we do. 2020, I don't even know what we're going to call 2020. In the United States, we also have a lot of protests going on. It's a volatile election year. Other parts of the world, the UK is dealing with Brexit. Everybody is worried right now really about global warming. That's going to affect us all, but it's going to affect us all differently. So this is a moment in history. It's never been more volatile than it is right this second. But just remember, we have gotten through and we will get through again. So all of that's very upsetting. I think we need a quote. From challenges and tragedies come innovations. Yes? And so when there is a terrible tragedy in the world, that's when things get invented and built and changed. Now is the crucial time for all of us to start leading with bravery. We have to change, recreate, and we really have to remain leaders, right, in our industry. And I think that people have wanderlust. People will want to travel again. So I'm not worried about whether or not people will travel. The travel will be different. So just remember that you are important and that you know more than you realize. Here's one of my favorite quotes. And to me, I say this in almost every concierge class. This speaks to what the best concierges out there already know. And that is from my friend and my hero, Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said and people will forget what you did, but they will never, ever forget how you made them feel. Think about that quote for one moment and realize the power that it has. So when people are traveling, yes, they go look at museums and monuments and shows, but when people are traveling, they are having meaningful interactions with people all over the world. I'm guessing that if you're in this industry, you love to travel. I love to travel too, and I can't wait to travel again. Lots of people had said to me when I started my business, isn't it a shame you don't get to see all these places you go to like a tourist? And I have to say, no, it's not a shame at all. I love it. I actually get to meet you. I get to meet people who are from the area, people who tell me stories. So no matter how many new fun keyless entries and ways of checking in without talking to anyone, no matter how much we sanitize and remove face-to-face contact, human interaction is still really the joy of travel. So you are that person in the lobby that knows an interesting fun fact, an interesting story. That is your value. So let's make sure we don't forget to do that, especially now that we're masked and we're gloved and everything is changing so fast. All right, so thinking like an owner or a general manager. I told you that I'm friends with a lot of general managers. Most of them are really nice. And most general managers that I know are feeling the pressure like never before. In fact, this is the best image I could think of to describe what the general managers are looking like to me these days. It's horrifying. And they are running their hotels as best they can. Now, I'm not going to ask you to feel sorry for general managers, but I just want you for a minute to put yourself in their Ferragamo shoes, just for one moment. Here's their current situation. The properties are either closed or they're run at a very low occupancy. Decisions that they are making might not even be their decisions. The decisions that a lot of the GMs are making right now could be tied to their government's laws, they could be tied to their corporate offices mandating things, or to the building's owners mandating things. So it's a little bit difficult to discern exactly what they are deciding to do and what's being decided for them. Their employees, who are also their friends and their colleagues, are being furloughed. This is taking a very large toll on everybody. But just so that you know, I don't know of any general manager, certainly no general manager that's a friend of mine, that takes all of these furloughs lightly. And a lot of the people that they are finding themselves laying off are people that they have worked with side by side for the last 20 years. And I think that it's a lot of heartbreak out there right now. Every procedure, every way that they check in a guest has to be reevaluated for safety. Everything that they are doing has to be re-examined and changed. So you think about the act of from making a reservation all the way to checking out, everything has to be re-looked at. So it's kind of a crazy time. They also have to think about the future, right? That's what you actually pay general managers for. And they know some of the restaurant outlets might close. I mean, let's face it, if a business was not working well before the pandemic, it's going to be really hard for them to come back after the pandemic. Some outlets were all about face-to-face contact, and until they can figure out how to change that, these might be closed or slow to open again. They need to worry about lower occupancy due to loss of group, conventions, tourism, and social distancing. Obviously, the way that catering is done, the way that buffets are set up, the way that conventions are handled is going to have to change. And so they know this, and it depends on your market, how big a percentage of your business that is. And lastly, of course, some properties might not get through this. We know this is a fact. It's not a good fact, but it's true. There's one other thing that you would keep in mind if you were a general manager, and that's any other unforeseen ramifications. A general manager has to plan for the worst and hope for the best. So very often in this case, they are thinking of lawsuits. They are thinking of future business propositions. If they were opening a hotel, that's going to have a lot of changes. So everything here is something that they are keeping in mind. And again, it's not for you to feel sorry, but for you to think of them too. Is that right? What do you think, Sarah? Is that true for you as well?
Definitely. Let me pop on. Oh, there we are. Okay, perfect. I absolutely think so. I mean, it's such a great point because, and I think it also kind of goes into what we do as concierge naturally. I mean, we have a bit of autonomy and ownership of our own desks, and we do make a lot of independent decisions. But it still is important to address and also to think about it in a bigger way. I know Sharon popped on, but we also have a poll. So I don't know if we should ask the poll now, but
I'd love it.
okay, perfect. And then I don't know, Sharon, you can chime in on that, but I will launch the poll now. So for those of you that are on, again, start casting your votes. The question is, what do you see as being the biggest challenge to performing your job when you return? Social distancing rules and lack of guest contact, fearful guests, businesses being closed and unreliable, or the unknown. So cast your vote, I guess.
Your very sad, depressing vote.
I know.
And while everyone is casting their vote, we have quite a few people from all over the world. So I just wanted to mention a few of the countries and cities that we have people saying hi from Dubai, Sri Lanka, Buenos Aires, Mumbai, Montreal, Paris, Milan, and Surabaya, Indonesia. So your reach is out there, and it's great to have everybody joining us from all over the world. Thank you very, very much.
It's beautiful.
And it looks like even Cape Town, Singapore, Toronto. Wow. All right, I will close the poll now, and I will also share those results. So it looks like the highest percentage, 39%, said that social distancing rules or lack of guest contact would be one of the biggest challenges to performing our job when we return. Then the next would be 27%, which is the unknown. 20% would be businesses being closed and unreliable, and 14% were concerned of fearful guests.
Yeah. Wow. And so that makes me feel really great. And again, because you can handle fearful guests, right? Everybody here knows how that works. But when it comes to, I think we're all a little bit worried about what other businesses are coming back, as you are in the business of selling other outlets and other things to do in your areas. You have to make sure that you have something good to say about all of them. That's great. Thank you for that. That's really nice. So in a moment of calm, right? Responding to business needs. And I'm going to actually, Sharon and Sarah have handout for this so that everybody can save these as little tips, especially if you are the chef concierge and you're reopening your team, things to be on the lookout. So there's a lot of unknowns out there still, but here is what we can pretty much put in the bank is needed for the foreseeable future. First of all, we need guests, right? Duh. We all need more guests. And as guests return, they're going to be returning a little bit different than before. The hotel is going to need professionals with multiple areas of expertise. They're going to need people who are flexible and who are willing to jump in and help in different areas of the hotel. I've been talking to a lot, as I say, of my GM friends, and they're all saying the same thing. If anyone says, this is not my job, this is not something I'm interested in doing, they have to move to the next person because they're going to have such a small staff in the beginning. They need to make sure that they have people who are willing to do what it takes to make the business successful. A can-do attitude and a willingness to learn new skills. Again, I can't emphasize that one enough. It's a little bit depressing out there, and like I said, me and my container of ice cream every once in a while will have a good cry. But when you are going into work, you have to have your game face on. I can tell if your eyes are smiling even when your face is covered. So we need to make sure that everybody is coming in with a positive can-do attitude. Similar to those of you who have ever done an opening, this is just like an opening in many ways because you are restarting the engine, and that is a lot of work. The ability to be creative and to problem solve, to find new ways to deliver the same high level of service provided before, but within all of the new guidelines. Again, I'm speaking to the choir here because that is what you do. And general managers are going to need people with great guest recognition, vendor connections, area knowledge, and service experience. So if you look at that last point one more minute, you're going to see guest recognition, people who know the guests, especially the return guests, vendor connections, people who know what is and is not open, great area knowledge, who are very familiar with their city or their resort, and beautiful service experience. Who am I describing? In other words, making the possible impossible every day. It's you. So if I were a general manager and I could only bring back 15 people, I'm going to start with my most dedicated, knowledgeable, caring staff. And I'm going to look at the people who understand big picture. You are powerful. You are intelligent. And everybody who has taken the certification you need to get into and qualify for Clé d'Or, every single one of you, don't forget how much you know. It is easy during these times to feel uncertain, but you know a lot. And a lot of this you've done before. So I just want to make sure that you're approaching it from a position of power because rocky waters are ahead.
May
What?
I chime in with one
Hit
more
me, please.
poll?
I would love it. You know I loved polls.
Yes, no, well, these are such great questions. So
Good.
again, for all of you guys tuning in, I'll go ahead and I'll launch the poll now. What concierge skills will be the most important in the future? Speaking several languages, area knowledge, connections and experience, customer service and conflict resolution, or all of the above? And we're starting to see a, a pretty, as the numbers come in here, a good number are saying all of the above, but there are, I feel that, you know, our role is sort of evolving, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
And everybody's voting quickly this time. I see the numbers
Nice.
are coming in. Perfect. Okay, I will go ahead and close the poll so we can, and then I'll share the results. So it looks like 69% of you said all of the above, where 22% said area knowledge, connections, and experience. 8% said customer service, conflict resolution, and 1% said speaking several languages.
Great. Yeah, I agree that you're going to have to be doing it all as you were before. Um, so, so if you have to be good at conflict resolution, chances are you already are good at conflict resolution, but that is something that's going to come up. Guests are going to be disappointed something's not open. You're going to need to put a great spin on what is open. Guests are going to be fearful. You're going to have to be able to put them at ease. Those are going to be the biggest conflicts. But other things you've been doing forever really well. So for me, being brave, right? The best definition of bravery is being afraid and doing something anyway. So, you know, again, I can't emphasize this enough. If you are worried about what is to come, you are in the right place. But you can do this, and you are surrounded by experts to help you. So I wish I had this crystal ball. I would be a lot richer right now. It would be great. I do not, however, but kind of we all do. We have some intuition. Here's what the concierge did before, and I'm sure I'm missing a lot, but here are the majors that stick out for me. You have always acted as ambassadors to your location, your company, your property, and the culture of the people who are there. You have always oriented the guests to the area and made sure that they had a comfortable stay. You have always made reservations, suggestions, and helped plan itineraries. So for those of you who've had my classes before, you know the reason why I'm queen of the pivot tables is because I like to go in and look at your data, and I like to track how much you sell, how many reservations you do, how the guest wants to be served, what are they requesting. All of those, I can tell you, over the last 10 years, I have noticed every concierge, every person within the sound of my voice right now, each one of you probably brings in between $1 and $3 million per year, US dollars per year, to your city or your region. That is in restaurant bookings, that is in spa, that is in car services. If you take everything that you reserve for the guests, it comes out to between $1 and $3 million, each one of you. So when I say that you are powerful, I'm not just saying that like to be nice. I'm saying that financially you are powerful. A typical concierge will bring about 250 to 500,000. Again, I'm just using US for now. US dollars into their hotels' outlets per year. You assist guests in difficult moments. You always have. You act as a translator. You problem solve. And you mediate between the vendor and the guest if there's a problem. And you delight and surprise guests. You increase the guest's loyalty to your brand. You increase the guest's loyalty to your city you represent. Lastly, as I said before, you support local vendors, property outlets, and you provide valuable information for guests. So this is all things you were doing before. By the way, though, if I'm honest, communication with vendors in some regions of the world has fallen off a little bit. Delighting and surprising in some areas of the world has fallen off a little bit. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I think that's coming back now stronger than ever. So let's look at our future crystal ball and see what could be happening. So when you return back to work, you still are going to need to act as ambassadors as before, but you're going to have to know in advance some guests are going to be fearful to travel again. And honestly, I want you to, it's kind of a bad example in that it's depressing, but I want you to think about when there's a terrorist act in your part of the world, when something has happened in your part of the world, think of all the questions you need to field for several months after that incident has occurred. I think that you should be ready for those questions now. And let's just stay on that for a minute. You're going to need to orient guests as before, but you're also going to need to explain to your guests the new rules and changes. So again, kind of a bummer, but for example, in the United States, near where I'm from, we had the shoe bomber, right? This terrorist a few years ago, he tried to get on a plane and he had a bomb in his shoes. And so now in the United States, pretty much everywhere, unless you have prior security clearance, when you go through customs or through, the airport, you have to take off your shoes and they x-ray them because that one man changed it for everybody. When I go to Europe, I don't always have to take off my shoes, right? When I go to the Middle East, I don't have to take off my shoes. So it just depends on that region. Now, as people are coming back from the pandemic, they have all different rules. And you are going to need to find out what the rules are for your region and share that with the guest who won't be familiar with your rules. I think a more pleasant example is, again, using the US for a minute. There are some states in the United States where marijuana is legal, right? So if you go to that part of the country, the concierge has to be able to explain the rules. And then in other parts, it's not legal. So, just realize the change is happening everywhere, but it's not happening in exactly the same way, which is what makes it so confusing. You are still going to have to make reservations. And nowadays, I think you're going to need to make more reservations than ever. So if a fine dining restaurant normally has 60 seats and they do 2 seatings, some of them now are going to only allow 30 people to get in and only have 1 seating. So restaurants are going to sell out a lot quicker than they did before. This is one instance where I think concierge is going to be very, very important. You're also going to have to help guests get through difficult situations and remain sensitive. Hundreds of thousands of people have died of this disease. Again, not to be a bummer, but I guess it's kind of a bummer topic. I went to buy a sympathy card for a family relative that had passed away a couple of weeks ago, and I went to the store and the whole sympathy rack was sold out. And so I went to another store and that was sold out, and a third store. And so people are suffering in all kinds of ways aside from their jobs, and we need to be very sensitive and ready to help them. That particular individual, by the way, who passed away, did not, by the way, pass away of COVID-19. They're not having a funeral until things open up again. So you're going to have a lot of people traveling for a lot of different reasons, and you have to be ready. All the more reason to delight and surprise your guests. That's more important than ever. And think of all the contact that's being removed. If you're not able to shake a hand, if you are masked, what can you still do in order to make that guest feel A, medically safe, and then B, happy that they chose your property and chose to travel again? And you're more important than ever when it comes to supporting outlets. So your hotel and the vendors around you are going to also be struggling with this, and they're going to be trying to come back. My suggestion is that you are talking to them all now and offering your assistance, especially the ones that you think have a great chance of coming back strong. Help them come back even stronger. I also think, of course, when it comes to car service, that had fallen off for a while. Taxis and Uber had really replaced a lot of private cars. I think that's going to have a strong resurgence when people come back, as long as they are cleaning them properly. So just a quick recap of some challenges and opportunities that you have. I want to wrap this up so that we could take any kind of questions or comments. But expected challenges, we know, lack of guests, because the markets that are likely, though, to return first in the leisure and luxury market are going to be your drive markets. They're going to be your individual guests or your families or couples. Restaurants, entertainment, sports venues, they're going to go dark some nights or just stay closed. So you need to know what's open and what's closed. Reservations are going to be limited and sell out earlier than ever before. And guests are going to be inquiring about the safety of public spaces and transportation. So just get all of your answers ready. Guests might want to stay in or stay near the property more than they did before. And again, we've seen that behavior with other changes that have happened in the market. My projected opportunities for you all will be guest markets that use concierge services are going to actually increase. Not right away. At first, they're going to be looking at you mostly as guides, but over time, they're going to be looking for more direction from you. Restaurants and vendor bonds are going to have to strengthen if concierges prove to be a strong resource. So if you are able to help your local vendors fill up reservation spaces and guarantee reservation spaces, your partnerships are going to be stronger than ever. Reservations and itineraries can be planned prior to the guest's arrival. I think that's going to be another opportunity for you to make that connection you said you're worried about. You say you're worried about making a connection with the guest. Pre-touch, pre-arrival, setting up their itineraries ahead of time so that they aren't disappointed when they arrive. I think setting their expectations ahead of time so that they know what will and will not happen on their stay is going to be huge next time. So I think that that is an area of opportunity for you. Guests are likely going to be requesting private tours, private dining, private cars. And again, that is what you sell. It's what you used to sell more of about 10 years ago in some parts of the world. I think it's going to have a resurgence. In-room dining, I think, is where it's at for a lot of people. Private yoga, fitness classes, private dining rooms for family and friends to get together. Again, private cabanas. These are the things that a concierge does all the time. I think that is going to be where you come back and where you come back strong. So when it comes to preparing to return, and again, we'll have a PDF for you to have these slides so you'll know, but getting your team ready for the future, if you're the leader of your team, communicate with your coworkers about expectations, concerns, and processes that will be challenging to deliver. Ask them what they're worried about. Ask them where they see the problems and problem solve together, and they're much more likely to have buy-in when they return. Research the laws in your area, rewrite welcome materials for the guest that explains everything that they need to know, and be aware it's changing every couple of weeks. Reach out to your vendors, I beat that to death, but it's true, and establish connections and partnerships with them. Anybody who's ever been in my class knows that I always say this 100 times. Create templates for guest emails. Don't reinvent the wheel every single time a guest asks you the same questions you're getting over and over. If there are questions you keep getting, write a beautiful, heartfelt, gorgeous email and personalize the first and last line and keep resending it, because you're going to get the same questions over and over and over again. Create new policies for new procedures. So some of you who are furloughed or at home, or some of you operating at a very low occupancy, this is the time to prepare for the bulk of the guests coming back. Work on your PNPs, work on all of your training manuals that will need to change. Watch local and world news, know what is happening. And if you have a guest group coming in from a different region, make sure you're watching their news as well so that you understand where they'll be coming from, literally. Evaluate your own skill sets and interests. On my website, I have a 3-part video. It's free if you're interested in going on and seeing what are you doing if you're at home, besides watching Netflix, which I also am guilty of doing, but what are you doing to prepare to come back? So take classes, watch webcasts like this, and just make sure that you're staying current. We will get through this. Everybody is going to get through this together. But the experience will be different for everyone. So that's what I have. I'm going to throw it back over to Sharon and Sarah and see if there's any questions or comments, anything that I can be of service for.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, for everybody that's tuning in, please go ahead and send in your questions now. We do have a couple. But in the meantime, Kate, that was amazing. And I even was getting personal texts while you were speaking about how great you were. So thank you so much for that. And by the way, the template thing, that I'm so glad I learned that a bit ago, because that has saved countless of hours
That's right.
for me personally. So
yes.
that's definitely practical. Sharon, did you want to go ahead and ask the question that Rebecca had sent in?
Yeah, we have a question. It says, can concierge influence general managers, owners by having the amazing network of local support?
That's a great question. I would have to say, if I'm totally honest, it depends on your relationship with your general manager. But if you haven't done so already, my advice to any concierge, especially any chef concierge or concierge manager, to reach out to the general manager and simply say, how can I help you? I want to position my team to help you. And I know that you're not bringing everyone back right now, but we are here and we are your resource. And I would start to position myself as a resource as opposed to when can you hire me back, right? I would start to position myself as somebody who wants to be of service.
I love that. And it's basically having that attitude of how can I help you? Or not even how can I help you, but this is how I can help you, and taking that initiative.
I agree.
Which I love.
One of the things you mentioned, Kate, is evaluate your own skill set. Mm-hmm. And going back to the value of the concierge, we know what our value is and we learn what it is behind the desk. But how do we sell ourselves sort of in a different part of the hotel? Maybe if we're coming back to a multitasking role or something. So what are some of the things that you see as a concierge being able to do with their skill sets that we could sort of offer ourselves, or we may be put in that position?
I think it's a great thought. And again, this is when the concierges that I know that have been volunteering their services and getting to know, and really how well are you marketing what you do all day to the rest of the team. This is kind of where that kind of bites you in the tush, because you want to do a little PR for your position. And I would say your opportunity right now is to reach out to the other department heads and say, we're at your service. How can we help? Can we learn this? By the way, here's something you need to know. So just strengthening your vendor relationships are very often quite strong, but your internal vendors are important too. So that they know that you're ready to help them. You never want to seem like you're elitist and like you're not talking to the other departments, right? So this is a great opportunity for you to show that you're not, to show how approachable you are.
Definitely a team approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Certainly.
We're all going to need that.
We definitely are. This, so Mildred from Mildred Schneidman from Vegas actually wrote in, and she said, here in Las Vegas, the callback is by corporate seniority, a complete game change on when we will be called back to our desks.
Yes.
So
that's happening a lot. And so, Mildred, the one thing I would say to you is, first of all, There are times when being senior works in your advantage, and there's times when it doesn't work in your advantage. And so not every choice, as I said, is up to the general manager or up to even your manager. There will be some concierges who are going to pivot and do other things. Just know that your skill set, everything that you know how to do, you're setting yourself up to be very successful in what you want to do next. But my hope is that that especially in Las Vegas, they're going to be able to go through that roster pretty quickly. And a lot of people are not going to have the stomach for what's ahead. It's going to be tough out there, and the toughest ones are going to stay. So hopefully you're one of those, right, Mildred?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's a great point. A couple more. Well, just as chiming in on what we were talking about, Armand Bernardino said that information and communication is the key, which I know that we've definitely spoken about. And here is actually a great question. So thank you, Kate. Do you believe that it's going to impact opportunities for food and beverage professionals in hotels?
So much. They are estimating 25 to 40% of restaurants are going to close down. And so which restaurants are going to make it and which ones aren't, I don't know. But I can tell you that the restaurants that banked on the Friday, Saturday night crush, 3 deep at the bar, if that is how they were making their money, they're going to be affected terribly. Here it's a weird scenario, but the fine dining restaurants that have space already between the tables, that only do 1 or 2 seatings, I think their food and beverage will have a slight advantage. But it's going to impact every guest customer facing business. So retail, spas, restaurants, everyone's getting hit. Entertainment, sports, these are all going to be hit, because think of anywhere where you needed a crowd in order to make your money, right? But I talked to a lot of them, and they're finding new ways. So, anything else?
Oh yeah, there's a couple more. Yeah, we have more questions.
Oh yeah,
Sharon, do you want to take one?
I'm just going to ask one sort of back to your seminars that you do, and part of what we come out with is some of how we measure success. So what is the best way to measure success of the concierge desk once we get back there? I'm not sure if it's changed pre or post pandemic, but how do we measure the success of the concierge desk? What do we use?
Yeah, I've gotten myself, I've earned a few enemies because people get mad at me when I say it is important, it's imperative that you tell your general managers and tell everyone what you're worth and how much you sell. And everyone's like, we're not here to sell, we're here to serve the guests. Yes, but how do you measure, as Sharon said, success by serving the guests? You make the guests happy, you get less customer complaints. Those are actually things you can measure, but I like to measure things in money. And if we have a potential, we have a recession right now, but if we have a potential depression coming on board, you're going to want to be able to say, this is how much money each one of my concierges actually brings in to the outlet. This is how many reservations we sold. So those charts and graphs that I built, I would say, are now more important than ever when you want to be able to show what they do all day. And I guess the best way I could tell you is when I first show that to general managers, they're shocked at how much business you all bring in. So absolutely, you should have great customer service, and you should be kind, and you should help the guests, but I know you do that already. I know that. So the extra is you should be able to show the bottom line.
Thank you for that. I don't know if I'll say one more because we might have but I'll quickly try to wrap it up.
I have nothing to do.
Jennifer Brody from Miami, Florida. She actually chimed in and she said, do you think that we should start having guests sign a COVID-19 liability waiver when booking tours, private cars, reservations, etc.? So kind of touching on obviously the pandemic, but then how we're relaying that with our vendors.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think the vendors, you should ask the vendors what liability forms they want the guests to sign. And let the vendors give you their liability forms, because truly the vendors have to worry about lawsuits coming up in the future. So I don't think that that's something necessarily the concierges should have to worry about, but they should say to the vendors, I assume you have a liability form that the customers need to sign, because that is going to be on them. Just like some hotels are having guests sign liability forms and some are not. It's also going to depend on your local laws, what's going on. But what's happening right now in Miami and what's happening in all of Florida, the virus is on the upswing there, and they're going to have to worry about lawsuits later, right? So it's a great question. Couldn't ask a better question.
That's a great question. And here's one. This might be a little bit of a loaded question, but I think this might be a good way to wrap everything up. And I'm sorry, this is Daryl's question. Sharon, do you want to ask it?
Sorry, I had it on my screen.
I
really like that question, but I've taken it. Oh, here we go. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the best advice you can give those concierges who were let go or laid off and have no opportunity available because of the pandemic or the crisis?
Yeah. So Daryl, I feel your pain. I was not let go or laid off, which just means I don't get unemployment, but I have no work. There's no work. There's no work for anybody. So what I can tell you, I'm going to tell you a little bit of quick advice for anyone in that position. First, Daryl, take a breath and step away for a minute and look at what about your last job did you love? And what about your last job were you good at? And what do you think people will pay you to do moving forward? What do you want to do? What are you talented? What do you love? And what are you good at? These are the things you need to know. But right now, a lot of places are not hiring. I personally, and again, everyone's in a different financial situation, I'm able to limp along for the next 3 or 4 months, and I'm doing that because I'm going to reinvent myself and come up with something better, Daryl, much better. And I had a great company and a great 10-year run, and it got ripped out from under me. I won't be happy unless I come back better off than I was before. So that's my mantra. But I'm not rushing to get into something because frankly, I could go find a job tomorrow, Daryl, and chances are the job would dissolve again. And I don't want to lose my job twice, right? So take it easy. Look around at what is happening right now in all the different fields you're interested in and start winnowing it down. The other thing, I took a Cornell certification. I always wanted to, and I was too busy for. All the things that I was too busy for, I suddenly have time, I'm doing it. I'm going to be ready. And I'm going to look as soon as the dust settles a little bit. So I hope that helps.
That was a great answer. That's like a round of an applause. Because that's really, I think I think probably one of the biggest concerns that everybody has. And
yes.
So you really, I loved your answer because it just really tackled it directly and, just gave us actionable steps. And that's really, I think, the biggest thing at a time where you're like, I don't know what to do, but it's like, take those steps, and it's a good way to plan to move forward.
Yes, and it is scary, Daryl. So if you're feeling scared, you're feeling the right thing. It's scary, but you can do it.
Definitely. Well, we have just come up on our hour mark here, and we definitely want to respect everybody's time. So, Kate, thank you so very much for today's session.
Thank
It
you.
was
Thank you.
incredible. And the comments, by the way, the comments and the compliments keep coming in on our side. So please know how appreciated you were and for all the wonderful advice that you shared for everybody.
My pleasure. And if there's anything anybody needs, reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. And my website will be attached as well to the PDFs that we sent you. So I want to hear how you all do, and I hope to see you all in the future.
Yes, hopefully we'll see you in one of our hotels soon.
I would love that, Sharon. You know it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you as well. And then for all of you all, thank you so much for joining us for the second seminar of our second module. We do have a lovely session that is coming up next week. So definitely check your emails, check it out on Facebook to be sure to register for that. And again, thank you all for joining. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Sharon. A big thank you to the whole I'm just here. And a big thank you to the whole Education and Training Committee as well for putting this together. So a big thanks all around.
Have a great day.
Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.